Welcome back. It's track 10 time.
Oh my God.
Welcome to another episode of Nobody's Muses. This is Rachel.
This is Crystal.
We're so glad you are joining us. Don't forget you can find us on YouTube at Nobody's Muses, on Instagram at Nobody's Muses. You can find us wherever you stream your favorite podcasts. You can email us at nobodiesmuses@gmail.com. Please leave us comments. Share this with your friends. This episode may be ugly, but we're going to try to get through it because we are here. We are at the end. Not the end of the podcast. We're going to keep going on with some things. But we're at the end of the Amazon original series, Daisy Jones and the Six, based off of Taylor Jenkins Reid's best-selling novel of the same name. And we are finally here to the end. This is track 10. And here we go. So we're going to try to get through this together. We're going to try to, we are going to try to make a clear delineation and maybe not dive into the book and comparisons to the book. And we're going to try, but it's hard. But we're going to try that because this episode is very different from what occurs in the book. But we still think that the book needs to be discussed. So that's future episodes, right? That's what we're going to try to do?
Yes, we're going to do that.
Okay. All right.
So it's track 10, Rock and
Let's hit the
Roll
road.
Suicide. And it's written by Harris Danow, and his IMDb is just a lot of, obviously, stuff for Reese Witherspoon's company of some of those series. And then we're back with Nzinga Stewart, who directed the previous episode, and it's very exciting that she's directing it. And then just Rock and Roll Suicide is from Ziggy Stardust, the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, and it's all about how Ziggy Stardust basically was this, rock and roll star, and let me read what a summary says. Ziggy Stardust was willingly killed by his fans, a suicidal act which ended his stardom at its peak. Yet it was a moment of unity, and with its cries of "You're not alone, give me your hands, you're wonderful," Bowie brought pathos and empathy and a moment of symbiosis between performer and audience. And I will put a link to this analysis in our show notes. But
Seems fitting.
Appropriate. So then we have another one of those kind of like we did the episode before, which was also directed by Nzinga Stewart. We have the kind of like almost a cold open. So we go straight from the opening credits, and then we go to this. And the structure of this episode, I think, is just excellent storytelling because they intercut flashbacks with concert footage. And each song becomes kind of like a Greek chorus where it's commenting on the action. And the lyrics we heard before in songs take on new meanings, and we'll kind of point those out as we go through the episode. Also, I think we should take a look for the use of mirrors with Daisy and Billy, and also there's references to dark and light that I think are worth noting. So now we go in, it's the opening credits, and then boom, big old text says Chicago. And we see a slow motion from behind Daisy as she's going on to stage. And then that screen comes up again that we saw at the very beginning of the series. On October 4th, 1977, Daisy Jones and the Six performed to a sold-out crowd at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. And we know what happens after that. It doesn't say, but we know. And it is kind of like dun 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 in a way.
Yeah.
And then, there's a huge crowd, and it looks good. It looks real. Karen looks great. Everybody looks okay. We wouldn't necessarily know anything was happening. Daisy has on a white caftan, and she raises her arms, and the crowd just goes wild with anticipation. And they do a really good job of capturing that energy of when a big concert like that starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say both Eddie and Daisy are wearing white. Karen is in black, and Graham has like cool jeans on, and then I don't remember, is Warren in the vest here, or is he in a blazer?
He starts out in a leather blazer, which I thought
Okay,
was odd for a drummer.
okay. So then Warren starts it up with "Regret Me," and Graham looks a little mad, and then Daisy and Billy are singing to each other, and then 1997 Graham says, "If you had told me that morning that would be our final performance, I would have laughed." Karen is playing, and she really looks genuinely upset. Graham is just closing his eyes, just like, I think, like trying to just, I'm just gonna concentrate on playing good tonight. Then you get a close up of Eddie with a big old black eye, and then 1997 Eddie, he does another one of those things where they don't. 97 Eddie says nothing. Warren says, "I was just having such a good time. I didn't want to see it." In 1997, Karen doesn't say anything. She just looks like she's going to cry. And Billy is just really loose as he's singing. And Rachel, you noted that there's glitter on his face.
Right.
1997, Daisy, no words. She just tilts her head, like thinking about it. They finish the song, and he's not acting normal. And Daisy notices and kind of gives him like a questioning look. And 1997, Billy says, "There's a lot you don't know." And then Billy walks off the stage, and he takes a drink from a flask. And then we get the title screen, Track 10, Rock and Roll Suicide. So here we go. This is it.
Here we go. We're taking off. Yeah, there's just so much to like pay attention to in this just short sequence. Again, they start with "Regret Me," which we know they fought about even playing that, and Daisy got her way on that one. And I'm trying to figure out kind of where Graham is, because I think we find out later in the episode where his mindset is. But at this point, if you come into this show and you hadn't read the book and you're watching this, knowing where Graham was coming from might be a little challenging. But I think if you've been watching the series all along, you know that there's this conflict about Karen's pregnancy and what she ultimately ends up doing, her decision that she makes. And I can't tell if he's like just trying to like power through and get through the show, because all of this stuff has happened in a very tight timeline. We've gone from playing the home show in Pittsburgh and them flying out in the morning to go to Chicago and then being in Chicago. So it's a super tight timeline. And we know that Karen goes to the clinic while she's in Pittsburgh, and is on this plane and off to Chicago and ready to play again in the evening. So it's, I don't know if Graham's just like, I'm trying to power through this and get through this, and then we'll deal and we'll talk and I'll figure out what's wrong with her. Because he doesn't know that she's, at this point, he doesn't know that she's done anything yet.
Yeah, he does. We don't know that he knows.
We don't know that he knows. Okay. But again, is it just he's powering through it and trying to get through it, and then I'll deal with the emotions, I'll talk to her, we'll figure this out, we'll fix it. Or if he's just pissed and he's just done and he's just trying to get through it. I think at the end of this scene where we see Billy walking off stage and him having a flask, it's very, it's a pretty heavy foreshadowing about what's about to play out.
Yeah.
Because something has sent him to the point where he is starting to drink again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's really, I don't know what it is like to break sobriety. So I don't know what that feeling is, but I was really curious about how he was feeling physically, not only emotionally and mentally, but also like, how was he feeling physically? Like, how was his body reacting to the alcohol that had not been in his system for a very long time at this point? Not super long, because that was one thing that I took a step back and researched and was like trying to figure out the timeline. So he hasn't been sober for a super long time, maybe like a year and a half. But he got out of rehab, 75 and this is 77. So, he's been sober for a couple of years, but I'm curious about the physical reaction. But, that's just kind of a thing that just sparked my interest as I was watching this scene. But yeah, we break into, we are ready to start the episode, Rock and Roll Suicide. And we're ready to take off. So we go back 10 hours and we go to 11, what they said was 11:54 a.m. So basically, we're getting where the last episode ended. They flew in from Chicago that morning. Now or flew in from Pittsburgh into Chicago, and now they're in Chicago and they're hanging out in the lobby trying to get checked in and everything. And Julia is tugging on mommy, 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 and Camilla looks really upset, teary-eyed, and she just kind of passes over Julia to their nanny. And, Billy's inquiring with her, is everything all right? And she just looks at him and she says, I don't know, Billy. Is it? Billy doesn't understand where this is coming from. But again, we know at the end of the last episode, Camila saw everything that was going on at the house in Pittsburgh between Daisy and Billy. And so she's aware of this. She's not said anything to him, but her mind is racing about all the things that could potentially be going on between the two of them. But Rod stops and interrupts them and hands them their room key, reminds them sound checks at 4. And he goes through and you see Warren and Eddie walking up and, they're talking about the show. And I'm having a feeling that Eddie's sharing frustrations about what happened at the show with Warren. But he's like, I saw your fucking grandma, dude. She was having a great time. But Eddie is pissed. And again, he reminds them sound check is at 4. Karen and Graham walk up together. Seems like everything's okay. They're chatting. Reminds them that, again, sound check is at 4, not at 4:05. And they're like, okay, not 4:15, okay. And then we see coming from far behind, we see Daisy walking up and coming to get her key. And Rod says, so what do you think? Is today going to be the day that you don't lose your keys? And Daisy just looks at him and says, I want you to think about how boring your life would be without me, Rod. And he says, sound checks at 3. And he turns around and walks off. And she says something about, I know about Daisy Standard Time, which I don't know if you have anybody in your family, but there are members of my family where you have to tell them, you have to set Daisy Standard Time for them because they're never on time. But she turns around and Simone is there. And they greet each other. They're so excited to see each other. She's been gigging in Chicago. Daisy thanks her for coming. Everything seems good. And then they decide to go get something to eat. So they head off to a restaurant and they're just sitting and chatting. Daisy makes some comment about it's just like the old days, 2 chicks playing rock and roll. And Simone laughs and points out, but this time it's going to be in front of 50,000 people. But everything seems good. They're talking about... they start talking about Simone's deal with Attic Records and what that's going to look like. And Simone lets her know that she turned it down. And Daisy says to her, I thought that's what you always wanted. And this is a really, this little exchange here, I really, really liked because she said that's what I thought. But then she thought about like why her first record flopped. Was it about, the songs that I chose? Was it about my voice? But in New York, she found this community and she said, I realized, I knew my voice. I've always known my voice. I was just afraid to use it. But in New York, I stopped being afraid and people went nuts. They are saying no to, and then they kind of have this conversation and Daisy said, or Simone said ultimately, says something along the lines of they were saying no to the things that mattered, like family, like friends. And Daisy just kind of looks at her and says, oh, you turned down a record deal for love, you sentimental bitch. But again, we're circling around and not really saying what we know to be true. And that would be one thing if this series was made in the 70s where we couldn't say things like that. We would say people were roommates and stuff like that. But it's it's 2023.
Yes.
We go back to
why
can't we just...
Like she can't say...
Yeah.
They wanted
Name what
me
it
to
is.
break up with Bernie.
Yeah.
They wanted
Name
me
it
to hide that I was gay. Like, I don't understand this choice in the show. And I'm like, okay, well, I could see even if it's like, well, maybe they want it to be more broad audience, but there's nudity and there's lots of cussing, so like, why?
Yeah, because again, I mean, I can understand if the show was shot in that time and you would make those statements, like kind of be vague
Yes,
about it.
but it's not.
But the reality is that between these two friends and in a true conversation, they would have said the real thing. And so we're shooting this in 2021, 22, 2020, whatever. We're shooting it in modern times. If you and I are having a conversation, something may be discussed that's not socially acceptable, but we're between two friends, we're going to be truthful, we're going to be honest, and we're going to be real. So I'm not sure why they took the slant of not naming things that needed to be named.
Well, and Simone, okay, I can even give Simone, maybe she's not ready to say, I am gay. But they definitely could have said they wanted me to hide Bernie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't, it's a weird choice to me.
Yeah. But so then we get to this moment and they're sitting there and Daisy just kind of she just looks at her and she says, I don't think I can do this anymore with him. It's not just about not being able to keep up with the stress of the tour, not being able to keep up with the rigorous, the stress on my body, the temptations, the sobriety, the not being sober. But she just says, I don't think I can do this anymore with him. And Simone says to her, as a good friend should say, if it hurts you this much, then maybe you shouldn't. And that to me is what a good friend would have said. It's not buck up, keep trying. You really wanted this. You just need to fight through it. No, it's like, what this is doing to your friend. It's destroying you. And so, maybe it's time to say no more. But we cut back. And this is, I think, one of the great things about this episode is that we're bouncing back and forth between that morning and the show and that morning and the show. And so we bounce back to the concert and Billy is singing Kill You to Try. And Daisy is looking at Billy with just all kinds of questions in her eyes. And, at that point in time, the lyrics that are going as she's kind of looking at him as they've cut back is that I've been an angel all summer long. I swear I've done nothing wrong. I want all your tears to be gone. Come home. Cape Cod, Santa Fe, a little house in Marina Del Rey. So close to get so far away. Come along, come on home.
Yeah. And so then we cut to 12:55 p.m. and Camille is walking out of the hotel room, and Billy is following her. And they've obviously already started an argument, and he's like, "Where's this even coming from?" And Camila says, "I saw you in the kitchen this morning. The way that you were looking at each other." And Billy is like, "We've talked about this. It's what people want to say. It's an act. You know that. So people in the kitchen wanted to see that." Okay. Camila just says, "Just tell me the truth. We are both adults. We've both done things." And Billy at first is like, "There's not." And then he's like, "What do you mean? What does that mean? You've done things." And she says, "You know what I mean." And he goes, "I don't think so." And then Camila switches back to, "How long has it been going on?" And Billy yells, "There's nothing going on." And then Billy admits, "All right, I kissed her once, ages ago, for like a second, but that's it. I swear to God, it meant nothing." Camila says, "Tell me you don't love her. You can't even say it, can you?"
And there's a pause there.
Yeah. And then Daisy walks up, and it's like, oh, it's so. And then Camila says, "I'm done here." And Billy looks at Daisy and he's like, "She thinks we're having an affair. She thinks I'm in love with you." And Daisy says, "So what did you say?" And Billy says, "I told her the truth, that nothing happened and nothing ever will." And then you see Daisy with just a tear going down her face.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The point in which she says, tell me you don't love her. And then there is a really long pause because she's giving him this opportunity to say, I don't love her.
Yeah.
And she's like, you can't even say it.
Right.
You can't even say it.
Because we've known this is a person, the more we talk about this episode, the more it is actually a lot about kind of what sobriety really means. and how the lies we tell, the lies we all tell ourselves, but especially addicts tell themselves. Because Billy says, I didn't do anything. Nothing happened. So that's as good as not loving her. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
because
he
if nothing
actually, oh
happened, then
yes.
I obviously don't love her because I didn't sleep with her. So obviously I can justify and say, "Oh, I don't love her," but
Hmm.
I'm not going to say it because in reality, he can't say it to himself. He can't say it to anybody else because I don't know if he does love her or if he doesn't know if he doesn't love her.
That's what I think.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know if he truly loves her or if it's that he cannot decide if he loves her or
I
not.
think he's very conflicted. I think he can. There's a part of him that Daisy sees that no one else sees, and then but just to be so cruel whenever whenever Daisy asks, "And what did you say?" and he says, "I told her nothing happened and nothing ever will." When he knows just a few hours before Daisy said we should be together.
Yeah. And this isn't the first time that he's been cruel to her in that way, where he's given her glimmers of hope
Hmm.
to think that something could happen, and then in the next step he's making it very clear that nothing is ever going to happen. When he doesn't believe it himself, and neither does Daisy.
Yeah.
So then we cut back to the concert. Daisy's a little bit off stage, kind of behind an amp, and she is taking a bump of coke. And Billy introduces No Words, the song No Words, very slow, quiet song. He's like, how you feeling, Chicago? You know, kind of one of those things. I tell you how I was feeling, but I always end up saying the wrong thing. So then we cut to Graham and Karen playing. And just the look on Graham's face as Billy is saying that line about, I tell you how I was feeling, but I always say the wrong thing. So then we go back to the morning, and it's Graham and Karen in an elevator. And this is kind of similar to the book, but they are obviously coming. It seems like they're coming downstairs, and you know they're in this, and Graham leans over and kind of kisses Karen on the head and says, "Are you okay?" And then he's like, "Well, maybe you should see a doctor," you know, thinking again that she's just feeling pregnant. And Karen says to Graham that, "Graham, I took care of it." And he was like, you know, shocked, you know, what, you know, kind of thing. And there's a point where I guess he pushes another button on the
Yes.
elevator and he exits off the elevator early.
Yes. Yes.
And she's just kind of left there alone to finish the ride by herself. And she's I mean, you could tell she's heartbroken and she's emotional. And to have him just walk out when she admits to what she had already taken care of in
The
Pittsburgh. But,
abortion.
yeah,
The abortion. The
the
abortion. The
abortion,
abortion.
the abortion that she chose to have in Pittsburgh. So then we go back into the concert again, and we have Karen and Graham just looking really, really sad. And we go into the lyrics that are running at that time. There ain't no words to the song I'm here to sing. No, there ain't no words to the song I came to sing. Oh, I just don't know the words, babe, to tell you what I mean. And I'm at the end of my mind trying to do the right thing. And I think this is a really good line. You know, Graham, I know that I feel in my heart at this point, Graham is really convicted because I truly think he loves Karen. He really would have loved to have had a baby, but he also loves Karen. So he's like, I don't know what to do right now. You know, it's hard for me to want to comfort her if she's not, you know, feeling well and after having the abortion, because again, I wanted this So I think he has some conflict coming up, but they're playing this song and it comes to kind of this, again, it's a quiet song in general, but Daisy walks over and goes and sits right next to Karen on the bench at her piano while she's playing and kind of leans her head over. And they both just look so sad. And again, we've avoided saying things throughout this episode. So how do Karen and Daisy connect like this, not knowing what's going on in each other's lives at this point? Like, to me, it's like, as great as this is and as emotional as this looks, to me, it tells you that they didn't even really know each other, because Daisy has no idea had no idea what was going on with Graham and Karen. And in turn, Karen doesn't know what's going on between Billy and Daisy other than what they've seen during the recording process. But what's truly going on and the things that have been said and the actions that have happened and things that have gone on with Camilla. So I don't know. I was really,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they did the work to make that little exchange really pay off.
right.
But I wish that we'd had more. When the first time I saw it, every time I've seen that little exchange, I'm like, I wish they had more scenes together.
Right.
I mean, they did have those scenes, at the end of the last episode. There are moments where obviously and I know that's, they had a limited number of episodes and time, so I get it. But I would have liked a few more personal scenes between Karen and Daisy.
Yeah. And that's it. I keep trying to remind myself, you only have so many minutes. You only have so much time. You only have so many characters that you can put into this, because I do think the relationship between Karen and Daisy was more in the book. But this just seemed, again, it's like, how are we, I guess a hurt person recognizes another hurt person. So maybe that's what it is. But they were not as close. Their relationship was not as close as I think it could have been and it should have been. But maybe that was because they were all too caught up in their own stuff,
Yeah.
Easily caught up in their own stuff.
So then it's back at the hotel now. It's 1:31. And Daisy is in a ballroom sitting at a piano singing Type of Guys. And then she's singing affectations put you in your place. The painting leaves you empty-eyed. And I'm that same type of guy. I mean, it's just like the chorus here of people. The music is commenting on what's happening here. So Camila walks in as she stops singing, and Daisy looks over at her and says, "He's telling you the truth. There's nothing going on between us. Not like that, anyway." And Camila says, "So what is it like then?" And Daisy says, "I don't know. You're his first love. You're the mother of his child." And Camila stops her and says, So he's with me out of some sort of obligation?" And Daisy says, "That's not what I'm saying." And Camila says, "That's exactly what you're saying, that he's with me because he's Billy fucking Dunn and it's the right thing to do." And Daisy says, "You know he loves you, Camilla. He's yours. He'll always be yours. You are who he'll choose every fucking time." And Camila kind of like, "So, well, what are you going to do about that?" And she says, "And I just have to live with that." And then Camila says, "You two are so much alike. You think that you are these two lost souls that are just fumbling their way through the dark, but you deserve each other." And in this scene, Daisy is wearing, she's been wearing dark colors. And Daisy, and she's very covered up. Like, she usually, does wear a coat, but then she's, got barely anything on underneath. And this time, she's kind of got a shirt that's up high. And she is, where she's sitting, there's a big curtain behind her, and she's dark. And then on the other side, you got Camila. Camila's in this cream-colored, beautiful kind of coat. And then it's that side of the ballroom is very light. And I mean, the contrast just in the way they look. Daisy is the dark, and Camila is the light. It's pretty obvious what they're talking about here. And I do wonder, and I wanted to ask you, what does Camila mean when she says? Because there's this big pause, and she's, when she says, "You are these two lost souls that are just fumbling their way through the dark," and then she just stops, and I think she was going to say something else, and then she just goes, "You deserve each other."
Yeah, that pause said a lot. I can't say that I 100% know what Camilla was going to say, but that pause says a lot because she took the time to really think through what she was about to say, even though it wasn't a huge pause, but it was still enough to give her a point in time to think. And then and then I think it was just a moment of just like, I'm done. I'm just done having this conversation with you. This is getting us nowhere. You deserve each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my take was kind of also that Daisy and Billy are these two people who really define themselves by being, I'm so tortured.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and Camila, you know what? We don't know Camila what pain she suffered. We know she's suffered some obvious pain because of Billy, but somehow she's this person who works to fix things, works to be positive and not destroy herself.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what that pause, what she initially, and I mean,
what she was gonna
if you go
say.
through huh?
What was she gonna say?
Like, what was she going to say?
Yeah.
And, these scenes in the book, again, kind of things play out very differently from the book to the show. But both are independently very, very powerful in the way they finish telling this story. And they both, I enjoyed them both. But yeah, I'm curious as to what she might have said there. So, at this point, Daisy's in this ballroom, Camilla's in this ballroom, and we come back to Billy, who's sitting in their hotel suite, and he's playing his guitar, and he just picks it up and smashes it over the table. And about that time, there's a knock at the door, and Billy kind of rushes frantically over there, thinking maybe it was Camilla who came back. And then he figured out that it was Eddie, and he was highly disappointed. And I think there were some F-bombs dropped. But it was just Eddie, and Eddie comes in and looks around the suite and sees this broken album or this broken guitar and says, "Geez, man, what the fuck happened?" And he was like, "What do you want?" Kind of thing. And he makes this comment about, "Well, I wanted to tell you myself. I wanted to do this like a man." But he tells Billy that he's quitting the band. After this, I'm done. I'm out. And Billy just kind of like very dismissively laughs at him. And he said, "No, I'm done. I'm done with this shit." And Billy's like, "What shit?" And then Eddie starts, and Eddie finally says all the things that he has been wanting to say since 1968, when the Dunn brothers formed. He was like, "You don't even know, do you, how hard it is from the start, the Dunn brothers days, as if Warren and I didn't exist. But hey, I'm a team player. I went along. I even gave up my goddamn guitar for you. I didn't want to play bass, but we needed a bass player, so I stepped up. So what?" And then he's played his bass, but then he says, "I stepped up, and for what? To hear that the masters, that you re-recorded my parts? You think I wouldn't have noticed? But that shit in Pittsburgh, that was the last straw," which we know, there was a song that was supposed to be Eddie and Daisy on stage, and Billy took the guitar and went out there and played with Daisy for that part. That was the last straw. The moment that I had that one moment on stage, and you took that from me in our hometown show. My grandmother was at that show. You piece of shit. When the tour ends, I am out. And so Billy says, "I think you feel slighted. You need to feel slighted. Otherwise, you're going to have to deliver. And you can't deliver. You're just not good enough." Oh my God. And Eddie says, "If you only knew." And Billy's like not understanding what he's talking about. And he's like, and he leans into him and he just kind of whispers, and he's like, or talks really low, and he says, "Use your imagination." And that's when Billy punches Eddie, throwing him back into the piano. And Eddie comes back up and swings on Billy. And he says, "This is your fault. You did this." So again, we have another opportunity where things weren't said. And how is Billy just supposed to automatically assume from this exchange that Eddie and Camilla slept together? How was he supposed to get that out of this small exchange?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why he wouldn't have said, I slept with your wife.
I fucked your wife. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
if
mean,
you
he,
really wanted to get that dig in before you left the band, I fucked your wife.
yeah. Yeah.
I've known her
While
longer.
you were over there fucking around with Daisy, I fucked your wife. Like, I don't know that. Why? Um,
I mean, to
but
me, if I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory and scorched earth, I'm going to say it. I'm going to name it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to name it. But we come back to the concert, and they're playing Look Me in the Eye when this is going on. And so, look me in the eye, turn around, look me in the eye, turn around, and say it to my face. And, we see, I mean, Daisy looks beautiful at this point. She looks like a rock god. And, once again, we see Billy with glitter on his face.
Yeah, and she goes over and is like dancing with Graham as he's playing his guitar solo, and it's just so I don't know. She just looked like they're like, to me, this is a real person that we're watching footage of,
Again,
and
so impressive that
yes,
these actors who didn't have any previous experience in music were able to pick up, Daisy and Sam. The other members of the band we know had some background in music, but again, they not only learned these skills of playing instruments and singing when they hadn't done this before, but then they learned how to like make it look real on stage.
yeah.
You know,
Well, and especially considering two of them aren't even, two of them are British actors.
yeah, that was the other thing. Josh Whitehouse, who plays Eddie, and Sam Claflin, who plays Billy, we know, um, they never they never had moments I did not recognize, and I'm usually really good at this. Recognize those moments where their British accent slipped in.
Yeah.
They kept a very strong, consistent American accent, which I thought was really, really good because I've watched other movies. I mean, even if you go and Sons of Anarchy and Charlie Hunnam, there's moments in that where his British accent slipped into that show, even though he did that show for several seasons.
Yeah.
There's other actors where you've seen hints of their accents bust, kind of break through on certain words, but I never heard that with Sam or Josh through any of these episodes.
No.
So super, again, just more and more talent that I don't think enough people are paying attention to this show. But anyway, so yeah.
So then we are back earlier in the day. It's 2:44 p.m. and Daisy is drinking in her suite, drinking straight from the bottle, champagne. And then she goes and looks in the mirror for a second. Then she comes back to go get some more drugs. And she's fumbling through her purse, and then she sees the letter from her mom, and she decides to open it. And it's photos of her as a child, and it's a photo of her with her mom in red outfits, and they're matching. And then her kind of looking sad, kind of sitting with her hand under her chin on the piano, and then smiling in a school pic. And so she decides she's going to call her mom. So she does a line of coke, dials her mom, and then
Uses the photos to cut the line.
yeah, uses the photos, and then she's like, her mom's like, "Is that really you?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then they have this conversation. She says something about, "Oh, Malibu Mondays. I'm surprised you were able to, find outfits that matched." And her mom was like, "Oh, and they had to be red for our hair." And um, Daisy's like, "Why'd you call?" And her mom says, "I wanted to hear your voice." Or she's like, "Why'd you send me these pictures?" And Daisy's mom says, "I wanted to hear your voice. I missed you." But then she says, "You're making up all these stories, telling everyone you're an orphan. You're not an orphan. You selfish little shit. I'm your mother. How about a little credit for once?" And then Daisy says, Mom, sometimes I think there are a million strangers out there who loved me more than you ever did." Daisy's mom says, "Well, maybe, but they don't really know you, do they?" And then Daisy says, "Next time you want to hear my voice, try the fucking radio." And then we go to and then we cut back to the concert. So I mean, wow. Can you imagine your mom talking to you like that? Like from first part, the whole part of the pictures and the matching outfits, and it's like I read that as for Daisy's mom, motherhood is performative.
Daisy was an accessory.
Yes, this is a thing that and I mean,
This
I've
isn't
had friends who I feel like they have had that kind of relationship with their parent.
this is
You
an
know.
accessory. This makes me look like society wants me to look.
Hmm.
So this is simply an accessory that I carry around with me, just like I carry around a handbag or put on a bracelet or a
Yep.
necklace. My child is my accessory because it makes me look
Hmm.
like
And then
society expects me to look.
to say, well, maybe, but they don't really know you. So basically, she's saying if they really knew you like I do, they wouldn't love you.
They
You
wouldn't love you.
were
They wouldn't like you. They
you were
wouldn't consider you a
unlovable,
friend. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And I think this is an interesting choice because in the book, her relationship with her parents is cold. Like Nikki meets she introduces them to Nikki, like, and the father is present in some way. This is very different, and I think it actually really works really well to make sense of the pain, a lot of the pain that Daisy feels. I mean, I do think sometimes we want to ratchet up for addicts so we can understand why they're addicted, that they've had all this pain. But
Hmm.
I think, and I don't know, but I feel like this really works, and I can't imagine I can't imagine ever talking to a child like that.
Nope. But there are people that do talk to other kids like that.
Yeah. So then we go back to the concert, and he's singing all up on Daisy. Like he is all up on her. Like they're just sing fucking right now. And Daisy is smiling. They're touching faces. Like it's so close he could kiss her. And then the song is "Let Me Down Easy," which we know the lyrics to that. But I would say, um, one thing is just like while you're leaving, if you're gonna leave me, if you're gonna let me down easy. If you're gonna let me down. So it's
Her face, I was confused by it because in some moments, she looked really like excited and like she was into it, and then other moments, there was like this questioning or like this almost like shock, like you're making me uncomfortable.
well. I think as we move forward into the episode, we're gonna know why she has
Right?
this conflicted look on her face.
Yeah, she looks super uncomfortable with the closeness in some spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
So we cut to remember sound check was at 4 o'clock. Rod reminded everybody sound check was at 4 o'clock, and we know that it is 3:30. And Graham and Karen are at in the stands at Soldier Field. And again, this light and dark. Karen's in dark, Graham is in lighter colors, and they're sitting in the stadium in the stands at Soldier Field, while getting ready to, the techs are still setting stuff up. And Karen comes up to him, and again, you can see the pain in her face. And I question, okay, so we flew into Chicago that morning. Sound check is at 4 o'clock, and we have had an abortion the day before.
No, we've had abortion that morning.
Do you think it was that morning before they flew out?
Yes, because
Oh yeah,
because
because
the reason Camila was out, the reason
okay,
Camila was out and wasn't in the kitchen with
and
Billy and
saw them in
Daisy
the
was
morning
because
was because
she
she
was
was with
taking
Karen.
Karen. Like
Yeah, you're right.
this is
So
some crazy
we're
shit here.
so
That
we're at most likely 8 or 9 in the morning having this procedure done, and now it is 3:30 in the afternoon, and we are up walking around and doing our thing. And sometimes, yes, we have to buck it up and do things. I cannot speak from personal experience on this. I just know people that have gone through this before, and I don't think it's realistic to think that somebody's going to be up at 3:30 in the afternoon walking around. But again, if you got a job to do,
I mean, women do it.
you're right. There's a lot of times where we just have to buck it up and get shit done because we don't have any other options.
But yes, I felt
Um,
like it was a little unrealistic because just from what I know of people who've gone through that procedure, It is. It's not just boom.
Yeah.
I'm feeling great.
But Karen walks up. Graham's sitting down already. Karen walks up and she says, and Karen says, "I tried to tell you, and you didn't want to hear." She tried to tell him that this is not what she wanted,
Hmm.
and Graham was just like, I could have come with you. I could have held your hand." And Karen says, "Do you think that that would have helped with that look on your face? You think that that would have made things easier?" Graham says, "Relationships aren't supposed to be easy. They're supposed to be honest." And Karen decides to walk away, and Graham says, and this line, I think this was the final nail in the coffin. And Graham says, "You're going to be alone. You know that, right?"
Yeah.
He is hurt. I get it. He is hurt, and he is lashing out with whatever he can to make her hurt as bad as he is hurting. But he thinks that she's not hurting as bad as he is, but she is. But he is trying to make her hurt just as bad as him when she says that line. "You're
And
going to be
this,
alone forever." You know that, right? I mean, that is, again, the final nail. I mean, I don't think you could have said anything. I don't know, for me personally, you could have said anything more painful to her or more pain. I don't know that you could have said anything worse.
yeah, I don't. I mean, I thought it was. I thought this actually showed more of the Graham that's in the book, who really does not handle it well.
Right.
So
Yeah, but God dang, that line was just like,
that's mean.
it was
But it's
very
also
mean.
kind of this idea of if you're a woman and you want to have a career, then you don't get to have love. And
Or
I
you're
don't.
not as good as other women or worthy
Or,
as
yeah,
other women because you are choosing to not have children,
yeah.
which is
Or also, in a
fucking
way,
bullshit.
I feel like Karen also is like, I don't want the kind of life that you want, Graham. Not beyond just children. I don't want that kind of life.
Right.
I want to be a rock star.
Yeah. So we get back to to the concert, and there's a close up of Karen, and she's giving Graham this look. And again, now we see this, and we're like, okay, these looks. You know, he has delivered this line to her.
Hmm.
To me, I don't know that I could stand in the same room with him. But she's doing her job. She's got stuff to do. But we see them giving each other this look, and then Billy and Daisy are continuing to, you know, go through this, and now they're playing More Fun to Miss, and
Right.
so they've changed up songs, but they're playing More Fun to Miss. And again, he is just like flirting on her so hard, and she just looks super uncomfortable at points of this. Like she's questioning, like if this is authentic, like what's going on with him. She doesn't know what's going on with him. None of us know what's going on with him yet. But she's like, I don't, you know, you can tell she's like, I don't know if this is legitimate, if he, you know, what's going on. He's making me uncomfortable by being this close. He's being so open with his flirting in front of 50,000 people. And it's just making her like she's having a moment where she's like, okay, this is not good.
But, and then I think, so, we've had this big blow up between Graham and Karen, and then the lyrics are for more that we hear of More Fun to Miss is, "Last time I hit a lick was when I heard the church bells chiming. You'd be just as fun as a jammed up gun. Another shot. It's just the wrong place and time. More fun to miss than to be with." Wow. I mean, so I feel like what this song was about, Daisy. Now it's like it could very well be Graham singing this song because the what he's saying. But it's also, so then we go back to. Oh wait, well I'll say one other thing on that. I thought Daisy looks a little like. I think she's conflicted because she doesn't understand we. She doesn't quite understand what's going on, but we
Right, she
know
doesn't.
she doesn't know how to respond, but also like she is incredibly attracted to this person. So every time he comes up on her, every time he touches her,
It gives her hope.
it sends this, for sure, just thrill of electricity through her of like, oh wow, you know. I mean, you know, as we move forward, we'll see all the things that have happened before this. So we'll keep moving forward. So it's 4:13 p.m. now. So he has
Sound
missed
check was
sound
at
check.
4.
He
Sound
is
check
in
was at
like
4.
a hotel bar, and there's like an old timey, it's even an old timey phone booth for the 70s. Like it's a wooden one, you know. Like I'm sure they're like, oh, let's put this cool retro phone booth in our bar. And then he's trying to call Camila, and you know, he's like, he's trying to find her and asking people, have they talked to her, do they know where she is, and then finally he just leaves a message, like on they have like a message service at the, you know, it's recorded, and he says, if there's any part of you that loves me, I want to make it right, please come to the show tonight, I love you and I need my girls.
If there
And then,
is any part of you that you want to make this work.
yeah,
Oh,
and then there's some dudes knocking on the thing and he's like, I just got in here. He's very loud. And then he calls Teddy. And Teddy's in a session, but he comes out to talk to Billy. And this is just so sad.
mm-hmm.
Because Billy wants to say some things, but it's also like, I don't want to disappoint Dad. And you know, Teddy, it's kind of, and Billy's like, oh, I just wanted to see if you're taking your medicine and stuff. And Teddy's like, is that really why you called me? And then Billy was like, oh yeah. And he's like, I love you, Teddy. And then they hang up. And then the dude who's knocking on the phone booth knocks again, you know, and then Billy comes out and he realizes it's the famous Billy Dunn, and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry, let me buy you a drink. And so he asks for 2, I think, whiskeys.
Yep. Jack.
And
Jack.
And he and Billy takes it, and the bartender kind of even looks at Billy.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, would they know?
Because Billy has tears coming down his face
yeah. And
as he's coming out.
And Billy's like, so he looks at him, Billy looks bereft, and Billy takes that drink and just knocks it back. And then we're at, as this is declining, he's declining, we're back, and Daisy is in her room, and it's reminiscent of whenever the night she OD'd with Nikki, and she's there's punk rock music blasting, it's the band Saints, and the song is The Perfect Day, and the line is, ain't nothing has changed at all. And so she's just knocking back, drinking straight from the bottle, nothing looks... I don't know. There's just something about drinking champagne straight from a bottle that, I don't know. It just looks so rock and roll. And then the phone is ringing, and she's not paying attention. She finally picks it up, and it's Rod's assistant saying, where the fuck are you? She hangs it up, and then we go, and then she goes and looks at the mirror again. And then she puts a bunch of stuff on her eyes, and I've got questions, Rachel, like, what's happening here? But the whole time she's doing it, the phone is still ringing. So what is it that she lights with that candle? What is going on?
It's an eyeliner pencil, you know, because back in the day, you did, and you honestly, you would have to heat up, and I did it in high school. You would heat up some of those old time, and I can't even remember what brand it was, but it was a red eyeliner pencil, and it would not just come onto your eyes like a pencil does now. You would heat it up and soften it, and then it would go on a lot heavier, I guess. It would probably go on just painting it normal, but if you wanted that heavy, like if you wanted to do your water, you know how we used to do the inside of our water line and stuff like that, you would have to heat it up with a cigarette lighter. And I can vividly remember having a disposable Bic lighter and my parents saying nothing about the fact that I had a disposable Bic lighter, but I'd warm that thing up and I'd line and what she did was she like didn't really try to line, like she just kind of put it on and then rubbed it to make it like her eyeshadow.
Yeah.
And then just kind of, you know, added her glitter and stuff on top of that. But yeah, it was just an eyeliner pencil. But I want to go back to the conversation between Billy and Teddy because that was heartbreaking to hear him.
Yes.
He was so it just almost, it sounded like a conversation that somebody might have with somebody before they take their own life.
Oh yeah. I mean, I
Because
think
it was
that's
like,
what it
oh,
was. I mean,
he was
because
just, his voice was breaking the whole time. And he's like, I just wanted to make sure you were taking all your medicine.
yeah,
And Teddy's like, is that, like you said, is that really what you were calling about? And again, you hear his voice so broken, and it's almost like he's saying goodbye to Teddy.
yeah,
He's like, I love you, Teddy. And that was just really, really hard to listen to him, because nothing's even happened yet other than the arguments with Camilla, and Camilla figuring him out, and him probably trying to figure out himself and figure out, does he really love Daisy or not? But man, just his voice in that, it was just so hard. And I did catch the look, because he does come out of that phone booth and there are tears, his hair's kind of hanging over his face. So not everybody might have seen it, but he had tears coming down his face. And that bartender looked at him with a moment of pause and concern, like, should I really be giving this guy a drink? And this scene, there's a scene in the book where Billy is at a bar and a fan offers to buy him a drink. And it's as equally as powerful of a scene in the book as it is in the interpretation that they put into the show.
yeah.
So, all right. So we have, again, Daisy's late, Billy's late, nobody's at fucking sound check. But so we get to the stage, we're at sound check, and Rod is like, does anyone have a guess as to where in the hell everybody might be? Anyone know? And Warren is kind of sitting there in front of his drums, and he's like, it's not like Billy to miss a sound check. And he's looking at over at Eddie, and he's like, nice shiner. And Warren says Eddie, or Warren says to Eddie, like, what did you say to him? And Eddie says, I'm going to say some stuff, or Warren's like, what did you say to him? And he just kind of stands there, and Warren says, I'm going to say some stuff to you, and promise me you're not going to hate me. And Eddie's just kind of there and waiting. And he's like, Warren says, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yes, Billy is an asshole. So what if you're not the guy? I mean, you're in the biggest band in the fucking world right now. You get to fly around in private jets. You sleep on $100 bills. We get to play songs that millions of people listen to and love. And that's not enough for you? We are the luckiest motherfuckers in the world. And Eddie looks at him and says, well, maybe I'm looking for more out of life. And Warren just is like, just starts to walk up, and he says, yeah, you know what? Keep looking. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, maybe I'm going to go smoke a joint. Or he's like, maybe I'll call my girlfriend the movie star. But he just walks up from him. He's just like, Warren's willing to put up with the bullshit because Warren just wants to play rock and roll.
Yes. And also, yes, you guys, it's also to show you, there's the whole study of, however, there's a certain diminishing returns on money and wealth. That at a certain point, the people are not any happier than people who are making a certain amount. It's like, and I think this is the perfect example of that, because, these people have everything, and they're still incredibly unhappy. They have met the thing they dreamed. They have the thing that they dreamed and wanted. They wanted to be rock stars. They are rock stars. And Warren is the one guy who kind of gets it. And I feel like he's just so, to me, he gives Ringo vibes, because Ringo was kind of the mascot of the Beatles in a lot of ways. Everybody got along with Ringo. And I feel like that's Warren. Warren gets along with everybody. He makes it work. Mm-hmm. And I think he's the most adjusted person out of it. And it's so funny, because when you start off with your journey with Warren, you're like, oh my God, he's such a misogynist. He's so sexist. And you see this growth of a boy to a man.
Right. He recognizes what they've got in front of him. He
Yes.
recognizes the fact that they're the luckiest motherfuckers in the world.
They are.
And, Eddie and everybody else just wants to find they want to find ways to not be happy.
Yes.
And Warren, they want to find things that will make them unhappy. They want to look for the things that make them unhappy. And Warren is not that kind of guy. Lauren is looking at all the things that he has and focusing on those and not looking for the negative, not
Right.
looking for the bad stuff or not anticipating the bad stuff. He's just riding the ride, man. He's playing rock and roll and he's fucking loving his life.
Yep.
So we cut back to the hotel and Camila is hearing Billy's message and that desperate of, if you really want to make this, if you really have any desire to make this work, please come to the show tonight. I love you. I need my girls. So Camila is hearing that message and and we cut back to the concert. And this is when Daisy introduces Simone to come out and Billy kind of steps off stage as Simone is coming on. And Rod pulls Billy aside and was like, serious question, dude. Are you okay tonight, Billy? And Billy looks at him, or Billy doesn't even look at him. He's staring out of the stage and he just kind of leans into him and he's like, I've never been okay. So then we cut to, they start doing the river. And, Simone and Daisy are singing together. And I think at that moment, like it starts the song starts and it's Daisy and Billy singing. And then Simone comes in and it's almost like Daisy just kind of forgets about Billy. And it's just about these two women having the time of their lives, singing rock and roll on a stage in front of 50,000 people. But it turns into something more of a connection between the two of them than it does as we go through these lyrics again. And you've done, Crystal did the work to pull these lyrics in of where we are in the show, where we are in the scene, and, what lines are coming out through the song. And it's very much, if I follow you to the river, send my blues out to the sea, will you stay with me forever? Will you chase me in my dreams? If I throw it all in the river and I let the rhythm take the lead, will it stay with you forever that you lean on me? And we have these two women in connection in music at this point, and
Right.
Billy's like off to the side. He's not a focal point at this moment for Daisy at that moment.
Right. So
He's not the focal.
it's really, really well done because like the first part where Daisy and Billy are singing, it's like him singing, I could have sworn this was the way, and, tell me again, why do we stay? So this, on such a lonely, lonely, lonely road. So this is like Billy talking about like, I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do. Why do I keep doing it? Because I'm just, miserable. And then it switches to the parts, and then when Simone starts singing, it becomes more about Daisy and Simone. It's just really cool.
Good
Like
point.
you can read, you can interpret the music many ways.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that back because, yeah, you do see this, and I mentioned the connection between the two of them at the beginning, but then
Yeah,
once
then
she
she
and Simone start
goes.
singing, she's off, and that's her focus at that point is that relationship.
So then we go back, and it is 8:33 p.m. Can you imagine? And Rod is just looking so tense, and Billy comes up to him, like gives him a hug, and is like, sorry, I'm late," and he's like, "She's not here, is she, Camilla?" And Rod's like, "No, she's not here." And Billy looks so crushed, and he goes into the bathroom, and then he looks in the mirror, and then he pulls out a flask and takes a big old drink. So at 4:15, 4:30, he was taking his first drink. And now by 8:30, he has
He's
a
had time to buy a flask and fill it.
Yes. I'm like, okay, all right. Let's get down.
More.
And then Daisy walks backstage while Billy's in the bathroom. Daisy walks in, and Simone and Warren are talking because Warren gets along with everybody. And she rolls over to Simone, and she obviously is high. The way she walks over and then gives Simone this big forehead kiss, and and she, like, all of these things Simone notices, and she notices the makeup and everything, and Daisy, and then Rod is there, and Daisy goes, "You look scared, Rod." And she goes, "And you should be." And he's like, "Okay." And then Daisy turns around and she's like, takes a swig of champagne, and she turns around and then there's Billy is looking at her, and she says, "What? You don't like my eye makeup?" And then he just grabs her and kisses her. And Daisy pulls back and stops him, and she's like, "You're drinking again." And he just like gives her this flirty look as he walks off. And it is so flirty.
It is a panty melter. Oh my God.
And
At least for me.
I mean, I just I just feel for her so much because it's like this is what she's wanted. This guy that she loves has kissed her, but
But it's
he's
not
drunk.
authentic because he's drunk.
Exactly. But
And
he's
you
kissed
can't-
her.
Yeah, and you can't in your right mind. I mean, he's drunk.
But he
And I know
kissed
she's
her.
high and I know she's drunk, but if she's tasting the liquor on his breath, she knows he's not himself.
Right, but it's
And yet
still,
he's
I
still
don't-
coming after her.
But also, she knows that, but you have wanted this person.
But are you willing to take it? Am I willing to take, because I've always wanted this person, I feel this connection with this person, am I willing to take the drunk version of him and then we can get fixed later? But can I have him now as the drunk version and we'll figure all the rest of it out?
I don't know. But I know, no matter, I just feel like there are moments in there are people that you want, and even though you know they're not good for you, or that it's not right, any touch, any interaction with them sends a thrill through you that you can't
Most
stop.
definitely. Most definitely.
I
And I
just-
think you and I mean, I think any woman that's ever been in relationships has had, no matter how happily married they are now and, you know, where they are in their points in their lives, there is someone in their past that they were willing at a younger age, were willing to put up with the toxic version of that person because they did do that for you. There was that electricity. There
Yes.
was that connection. And your, 19, 20, 25-year-old self was willing to negotiate and bargain with yourself that I'll take them at this point just because I've always wanted them and I'll figure out the rest of it later.
I mean, also, this is all time compressed, and she's high. Like, what is she supposed to do with all of these thoughts?
Yeah. Did you notice as she's coming in, there's a sign on the door that says, "Patience, please. A drug-free America comes first."
I wonder what that was about.
I don't know. Yeah, I just thought that was
That's
crazy.
funny.
It made me laugh. But yeah, it's and Simone, like you said, Simone notices her. Like she's like, whoa,
Whoa.
okay,
Yeah,
okay with the eye makeup, sis.
Yeah.
This is where we're going tonight. Okay. Yeah. That's where she went. So we cut back. We're back at the concert. And we've talked about in past episodes how it's gotten compressed and things are happening really quickly. This episode, it works really well that way.
Yeah,
I think
I
going
feel like
back
it
and
works in
forth.
all of them.
Yeah.
You know?
But for some reason, this episode, it really, really works. And I think it's critical to the telling of the story to be jumping back and forth and back and
Oh,
forth.
I think it's so much more powerful because of
Way
the
more
way they-
powerful.
Because it's actually like kind of almost playing with the very idea of the show, in the sense that the show, we know it's a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like the flashbacks are just closer and closer together.
Yeah, the flashbacks within the flashbacks,
Yes.
And so I do think the episode would not have been as powerful if they had started that morning and just ran through the
No.
day straight forward to that evening.
No.
It's so much more by going back and forth and back and forth. And like you said, compressing it down even tighter and tighter until we get to real time, as
Yeah.
in 1977. But we go back onto the concert, and Billy's at the point, we're probably winding the show down. Billy's making intros. He's introducing, Grant. He's introducing Karen, and he's introducing Graham and Warren, and saying all kinds of things about him before he introduces them. And he gets to Eddie, and he's just like, on bass, it's Eddie Roundtree. And that's it. And then he goes, you know what? Let's try that again. And he goes through this whole, ace on the bass, whatever he says, And he's like, Eddie, Demetrius, Roundtree. And the crowd goes wild. And he walks back over there like he's going to hug him. And Eddie says, I love you, brother. And Billy gets in really close and says, go fuck yourself. You done. And then we get to this point where he steps back to the front of the stage and he introduces Daisy, and it's not an elaborate, like he's done all the other band members. He said Daisy Jones, and then she in turn says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Dunn." And then, that's pretty much it on the band intros. But we cut to the crowd and we see Camilla coming down into the stadium, into the bleachers, and to have it to stand and watch the band. And they cut and they begin playing Aurora. And she's got tears in her eyes, and we're seeing flashbacks of Daisy, or of Camilla and Billy from their younger years. And we've got the lyrics. "You found me in the flames, the daylight of the change. Baby, all that stuff is done. You're my morning sun. Aurora, you're the one. You're my morning sun." And they go back and they show these really great clips of just kind of a retrospective of, and I don't know if it's Camilla's perspective of looking at him and hearing these words and thinking about their past. But we almost see like their past, and then when things started falling apart, like the montage of clips takes us to a point where we're at currently, where we do see the progression of things falling apart in this montage from Camilla's perspective. So the montage finishes and we see Billy walking over to Daisy, and they're kind of sharing a mic. But again, this montage, it goes back from the very beginning, and it's like, it's super powerful because again, we see like everything from the beginning of the meeting to, Philly McNasty's, and, we see Camilla using her camera, and we see her crying when they cut to current concert footage of her. But Aurora, I am here. I won't disappear again. How soon can you come? And again, we see the excitement of how it all started out and how they were young and just so hopeful about this rock and roll life. And we get all the way to like where we are now at this point. And so, she again is looking at the stage and she's seeing how close they are. And it's just, I wouldn't be able to sit there and take it. So she's crying. I think she wipes her eyes at one point and she just walks out. She just leaves.
Yeah. So, first part in the band intros, why does Eddie say he says, "I love you, brother"? And I had to go back and rewind that again and be like, did he really say that?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Maybe I was thinking about it, and I was like, do you think Eddie he took Warren's words to heart, and maybe he is sorry for what happened? Like maybe he would apologize to Eddie?
I don't think so.
To Billy? Then why did he say "I love you"?
Because he was caught up in the moment. They're playing to 50,000 people. There's energy. They've had a great show. I think he just caught up in the moment. I don't think he was changing his mind on anything. But Billy's response to him definitely seals the deal that if he was considering saying, "Oh, dude, you know what? I've thought it over and I just want to keep doing it," Billy was done.
Yeah.
Billy told him to fuck off. Well, especially again, we go back to that exchange that they were having because Eddie all but, he didn't admit it, and somehow miraculously Billy understood what he was saying, that he had fucked his wife. So he's definitely not going to be welcomed back into the band, whether he changes his mind or not, because you fucked my wife. So
yeah, but I would
done.
Also say Camila fucked him, so it's not
True.
There's two people, and Camila made that choice even more than Eddie.
Right.
Camila decided to do that. Yeah, like the part when they start singing Aurora and you see all of those scenes, I think it's beautifully done, and it's definitely, all of these shots are kind of Camila's perspective of what's happened.
Or they're focusing on her.
Yes, and how she
was a part of this.
Yes.
She was a crucial part of this journey.
And this song is about her. It's the song he wrote after he got out of rehab, and it's all about things are good, I'm going to be good, and I'm here, and I'm not going to let you down again. I won't disappear again, he says.
Yeah.
So then they finish that song. That's like their closer before they do the encores, and the whole band bows, and they go off stage, and somehow as they go off stage, then Billy and Daisy are off in somewhere, and there's like a beautiful like kind of blue light behind them, and they are making out hard. They're making out, and I think she's like kind of stops him and like, what is this? And Billy says she left me, or she's leaving me. And then he goes to grab to do whatever and do like a bump of coke, and Daisy kind of stops him, and then that happens real quick, and then we cut to Graham, and he's talking to Karen, and he's like, I love you, okay? If you want to live out of a suitcase sleeping on tour buses for the next 20 years, then great, so do I. Kids, no kids, I don't care. I love you. Just say you feel the same and we'll be fine. And Karen looks at him and she says, I'm sorry, Graham.
Yeah, she shakes her head, and because she knows she thinks she knows that she can't say it. And she just says, I'm sorry.
Well, and I would just say they want different things. This is going to be a conflict for them the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Because just because he loves Karen, that is not going to be enough for him. Because he wants these other things.
Right.
And I feel like it's still the idea that he likes this image of Karen, not actual Karen.
Right. Yeah. So we've just had Billy and Daisy backstage making out hard and heavy, and her kind of pushing him off. And then we see Graham and Karen. And so, like you mentioned, Billy is like snorting coke. He's like, she's talking to him, and he's like, keeps tapping it on his head. And she's like, what's going on? And then he just like takes the snort, and he's like, Daisy says, this isn't who you are. She's like, this isn't you. And Billy says, yes, it is. We don't have to fight it anymore. You and me, we're broken. So let's just be broken together. And Daisy says, she's looking him in the face, and like it's just so fucked up and like just high and just like, but could you imagine, she's leaving me and she's left me, and I don't want to fight this anymore. You're broken, I'm broken. We'll just be broken together.
And he's begging her. He's like going, let's be broken together. He keeps saying it, and he's like, just be with me.
And Daisy looks at him and says, stop. And she says, I don't want to be broken.
And her voice cracks.
Oh my God.
And she's just...
She walks away from him.
No, she walks away. She pushes him kind of, not hard, but says, stop. I don't want to be broken.
And she walks away. And the look on his face when she walks away.
Yes.
He just has this realization that he has just burnt down everything.
Yes.
He has destroyed it all. He has destroyed his marriage. He has destroyed his band. He has, this backup. And it feels like that kind of line about, it's over with, you're broken, I'm broken, let's be broken together. It's almost like Daisy's his consolation prize.
No, it's some shit. Like, look, it is some shitty.
Daisy's his consolation prize. Like, I couldn't make it work with my wife, but I got you as my backup.
Well, yeah,
but again, he's destroyed all of that. He's destroyed his marriage. He's destroyed his band. And now Daisy doesn't want to be his broken.
No.
So he's destroyed all of it. I mean, he is just literally, in a matter of a day, has destroyed everything in his life. Everything in his life.
The person she fell in love with is not an addict. If she had met Billy whenever he was whoring and on tour and doing all those drugs, she wouldn't have been interested in him. He would have been just like all these other men that she's been around.
Nope.
She
fell in love with a sober version of Billy.
I would say the point of the person trying to be sober that right. Billy was. And just to be like, she left me. Not, I chose to leave her because, you know what, I can't fight it. I love you, baby. No. I mean, it really hurts. It hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. So we see Daisy go back on stage, and they're all walking back on stage. And again, we think, okay, let's think about what has just transpired in the last 5 minutes. We've
Yes.
had, Eddie get told, fuck off, you're done. We've had Graham and Karen just come to the realization that there's no way to fix this. And then we've had, coked out, drunk Billy, make this statement to, Daisy, and her making a very strong stance of, I don't want to be that broken anymore. So we're all walking back on stage. They're all just like dejected and exhausted. They've been on tour, but they get out there and the fans are chanting, look at us now, look at us now, look at us now. And so Daisy gets up on the mic and she says, how many here are in love tonight? And they're like, where? And she says, I've been in love and it hurts, doesn't it? But it doesn't have to. Love doesn't have to be bombs and tears and blood. Love can be peace and it can be beautiful. And if you're lucky enough to find somebody who lifts you up even when you don't deserve it, that is where the light is. So my wish for you is to find someone who helps you see the light. This is a love song. And we know how that recording started and those original words started and the conflict that she and Billy had in recording that song. And now Daisy is seeing it for what he initially intended it to be, which was a love song. And they start playing it, and the intro builds up to where Billy is supposed to start singing, I don't know who I am. And he can't get the words out. He can't get the words out. So the crowd picks up and they start singing. And they're singing, and then Daisy comes into her part. Did we unravel a long time ago? Is it too much? Is there too much we don't want to know? I wish it was easy, but it isn't so. And Daisy looks up at Billy and tells him to go ahead and go. Tears streaming down his face, and she lets him go. And Billy walks off the stage.
One of my favorite little moments in that sequence is the guitar tech that he hands his guitar to, and he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
Why am I getting this? Why am I getting this?
Yeah.
But it's just... to me, this is a point where Daisy has finally come full circle and realizes that she cannot do this anymore. She cannot live this life of drugs and alcohol. She cannot live this life of heartbreak and this extremely unhealthy relationship with Billy. She can't do these things anymore. And so for her, she can give him permission to go back to Camilla. And I don't know if permission's the right word, but she's giving him permission to walk away, and she's going to be okay with him walking away.
Well, because basically what she's saying here is about when she says love can be peace, it can be beautiful, it doesn't have to be bombs, tears, and blood. That's the love that Daisy and Billy have. The love that Billy has with Camila is peace, it's quieter.
Yeah. And there's a really great line. There's a really great monologue in the book. Because again, how this all breaks down is very, very different in the book than what it comes up in the show. But there is this exchange that Camilla delivers, this monologue of, I don't want perfect. I just want mine. And this kind of sounds very similar to that. But again, I think she's giving him permission to go back because she knows that that's the better place for him to be. Because again, she doesn't want to admit it and she doesn't want to be that broken person for him, but they are broken. They are broken people. And so they can't be two broken people together. She's got to go get her shit together, and he can go back to Camilla, and Camilla can help him get his shit together.
Yeah. I mean, it's, but, I kind of want them to be together. I mean, I do. But, so then we cut to Camilla, and she's hurriedly packing to leave because she's seen them at the show. She's done. And we see Billy get in. He's in the car,
He's in a cab,
going
yeah.
back to the hotel. And as this is happening, the song is going on. And so then we cut to the band, and Daisy is singing, and she's singing to the band. I love this part. And then they're singing, "Oh, how did we get here? How do we get out? We used to be something to see. Oh, baby, look at us now." So you just, I don't know, it's so powerful because this is part where it's really building. And then we see Billy, he gets to the hotel just in time as Camila is holding Julia and the nannies with her because they're going to leave. So the song ends as he's doing this, and the lyrics are, "This thing we've been doing ain't working out. Why can't you just admit it to me? Oh, baby, look at us now." And then, so that's as he sees them at the hotel. And then we go back to the concert, and the band bows without Billy, and the lines are, "Oh, we could make a good thing bad." And that's the line he really hates because that's a Daisy line.
It's almost like she's singing her goodbyes. She's saying her goodbyes to the band.
Well, and also, like, this could be, like, we could read these lyrics. This could be the band. This could be Graham and Karen. This is, how did we get here? How did we get out? We used to be something to see. This is the band in a way. We used to, a few months ago, we were something to see. And now the whole thing is falling apart.
Yeah. For
Oh,
everybody.
we could make a good thing bad. We made a good thing bad. They
We made a
absolutely
good thing
did.
bad. We fucked up something really good. All of these
Yes.
people individually, except for
Yes.
Warren, except
Yeah.
for Warren,
Except for
all of these
Warren.
people individually and in pairs took what was, what was in anybody else's perspective success and the ultimate goal, and they fucked it all up.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you get humans in situations. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
things can seem really perfect on paper, but then when you introduce humans, it's going to get fucked up, So they finish, they take a bow, and they all start walking off stage. And Rod and like everybody's just walking off and nobody's saying anything. And Rod's just like, what the hell is going on? And Daisy stops and whispers something to him. And let's talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But whispers something to him and kind of pats his shoulder. And we see, then it cuts back to the hotel with Billy and Camilla, and they've stepped out onto the balcony and they're talking. And Julia's asleep in the room. And Camilla says, "How can she love you better than me?" And Billy fucking says to her, I can't believe he fucking say this to her. She sees me, she sees all of me. And I don't let you, and I can't let you. And if you knew how many times a day I think about setting our lives on fire. Camilla says, "I've loved you since I was 18 years old. You don't think that I don't see that side of you? I never wanted the perfect life. I wanted my life and my husband." So,
Let's go back. What do we think Daisy
what do we think
whispers to him?
Daisy said?
I think she says, "I'm quitting."
Yeah, I think
I think
she
she
says
says, "I
something
can't
along
do
the
it.
lines of, "It's over."
I can't do this anymore. This is over.
Yeah, it's over. I quit. Something along those lines.
And I would say when look, Billy has been putting on an act for Camila, basically, especially since he got out of rehab. But even before that, I think he was hiding his darkness from her, even though she saw it. He thinks
Yeah,
she's
he thinks
he's
he's hiding it from her.
And that is like that's what Daisy from that in that one episode she brings that out in him. She keeps prodding him and telling him, "Come on, man, there's something here." And he tells her how he let Camila down and what happened. And that is huge. And he, in his songs, writes about the conflict he feels, but he's never talks about it with Camila. I don't know how to say it, but I do. I'm going to cut, but I do feel like in real life there are a lot of people who put on acts for their spouses and act like that they are more okay than they are.
Oh, sure.
I'm not saying it's a good relationship, but they put on an act.
Right. Because if they know the real me, They're not
They
going to
might
love
not.
me anymore.
Exactly. And that's where Billy is.
Because I can recognize that I don't love the real me. So how in the hell is anybody else going to love the real
Yeah.
me? Even my spouse.
Well, and Camila does. The thing about Camila is, even in the show, even though I feel like they show her as a little bit more flawed in the show than in the book, she still is like, she seems so perfect probably to Billy. Like, here's this woman who's still loves me after all of these things I've done. How can I possibly tell her that every day I want to take a drink? How can I possibly tell her how tempted I am to take a drink or do drugs or all of those things?
Right. Right. So Julia comes. So again, Billy and Camilla are out on the balcony and they're having this conversation. And Julia comes out. Okay. And we can guess Julia's probably 5-ish or so years old. Maybe 4 or 5.
I think she's got to be 3 or 4 because let's say if he got out of rehab and
He
if
got
it's
out of rehab in
74
74. So she would have been born 73 or 74.
yeah,
And
so
this is
she's
77.
so she's like 3 or 4.
Yeah. So
I can believe it. I remember things when I was 3.
so she walks out on the balcony and we hear the interviewer say, I remember that night. She was in the purple dress. And then they cut back to 1997. And now we see Julia behind the camera. And she says to Billy, you were both crying. I've never seen you cry before. In 1997, Billy says, you were so little. How do you even remember? And Julia says, I remember a lot more than you think, Dad.
Whoa.
So let's discuss this for a moment because, some people may have not read the book
Yeah.
or listened to the audio before they watch the show. And this is still a pretty dun dun dun
It's
movement.
so good. The reveal is so good.
But do you remember your reaction
Yes.
when you heard the audio?
Yes.
Because I didn't. I did not see it coming.
I did not either, and I said to I remember going, Taylor Jenkins Reid, you are a badass. That's what I thought. I was like, this
I remember
is such a
the
good,
audible gasp
yeah,
that I had.
yeah.
The audible gasp that I had when this came out because maybe I'm just dumb, but I did not for the life of me see this come.
Well, I would say then there was things when I looked back and I was like, because there was things sometimes during the interview parts where I was like, there's things that in the book because it's all oral history. There were things that I would be like, that's kind of odd that they would say that like that, or why wouldn't they just say that? But now we know, especially Billy. I would always be like, why is Billy being so cagey about certain things?
Mm-hmm.
Why is he saying things the way he's saying them?
Talking around, kind of
Like,
talking
just
in circles at some
circling
spots.
around certain things. And
And he was trying to protect his daughter.
yes,
Because
or just,
what parent wants to admit to their kids
well,
that
and
they were at points in their lives ginormous pieces of shit?
well, even like Karen and Graham and Daisy kind of going, well, how much do you really want to know? And do we really need to go into this? And I would be like, well, what's the big deal? And especially in the book, because it's like 40 years since they've
Yeah.
talked.
And they wanted to protect.
But he's
They
protecting
wanted to
his
protect
daughter.
the relationships that Julia had with her parents. They
Yes.
wanted to protect those and not ruin, Julia's image of what her mom and dad were.
And it changes everything when you think about everything that has been said in those interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to in the interviews we've talked about it before, the unreliable narrator, because Billy is definitely an unreliable narrator in this because we see what really happened, but then him kind of not really admitting it in the interviews.
Well,
We
all of
see
them.
Daisy
Yeah, all of them are unreliable because again, they're wanting to protect Julia,
Yes.
this person that they see as a child, even though she's a grown woman now, but that's still Julia. That's still a child that they've known since birth and they want to protect her.
Yeah. And I just want to know, I want to know, please, people who do comment, who are listening to us, I just want to, what was it like for you when you first heard it,
I
saw
would
it?
love to
Like,
hear everybody's feedback on that.
I mean, please, just, just email us. We won't judge you. We just want them. We want the emails. I just love talking to people about that part.
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
you know, we cut back to 1977, and Billy is in the hotel, and he's got like a sad duffel bag, and he's like, "I'll work for it, I promise." And he leaves, and Camila says nothing. She doesn't really even look at him. And then we cut back to backstage, and Simone comes up to Daisy, and she says, "Teddy's found a place in Minnesota. Rod's going to take everything. Nobody's going to know." And she's kind of slumped down because Daisy's like sitting on the floor, against like a wall. And Daisy looks so sad. And Simone's like, "You've left family before. You can handle it." And Daisy says, "I know, but I just really love this one."
That one.
Wow.
That line.
Yeah.
I just really loved this one
Yeah.
because a lot of times family is about choice.
I mean,
A lot of people have a family of choice,
yeah.
not a family of biology. And this was hers, and now she was going to have to leave it. And that to me is just
Well, but I would say kind of how you felt so sad. Like it's kind of the conversation we had about Karen and Daisy. I would have liked a few more moments where we see her bonding with Karen, with Graham. I mean, we see that, like, the scene when the guys come out and tell Nikki to get away, those scenes. Um, I would have liked just a few more of those where we really felt like Daisy, it wasn't just about Billy, it was about this whole family that she had.
yeah,
But still, it's so sad. You feel so bad for her.
I do. So we cut to 1997, Rod, and he's sitting in a cafe or something, and he says the next morning we were all waiting on the bus. And 1997 Karen, with tears in her eyes, saying, "I remember thinking it would be okay. It would be okay." And 1997 Rod says, I'm trying to figure out how to tell everybody that Daisy is leaving." And then I see Eddie. And we cut to the bus out in front of the hotel in Chicago the next morning. And Eddie has a suitcase and he's walking to the bus. And Warren catches his eye and they're looking at each other. And there's this moment where Warren realizes what's about to happen. And he just kind of sinks back into his chair. And Eddie just looks at the bus one last time and turns and grabs, there's a cab waiting for him. And so then we see Graham coming out and he's got his guitar in his hand. And he looks at the bus. And then they have a shot of the stairs of the bus. And it's like this crackled looking linoleum or something. I don't know. But there is a intentional shot of the steps of the bus going into the bus. And he sets the guitar down and he walks off. And cutting to 1997 Rod, and he says, the irony is, and I'm not I think this was a voiceover. I don't think they cut back to him per se. I think you're still seeing Warren, if I'm remembering correctly. But Rod says, the irony is the chosen ones never know they are chosen.
Yeah. So that's it. I mean, Daisy's left.
Eddie's left. Warren's
Eddie's left. Graham cannot get on that bus. He can't sit. He can't take those steps up there and sit next to Karen. He can't do it.
No.
So then we cut to 1997 Karen. So now we're kind of like, this is what happened. This is the end of the band, and then now we're in the, the
Where are they
role.
now?
Where are they now? First, 1997 Karen. I wanted to be a rock and roll star. I wanted to play my songs in front of thousands of people, and she goes, and I have just that. And she has a band, and they kind of look like the background singers, like for the Robert Palmer,
Yeah. Addicted to
girls.
Love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she has a guitar, and
She
then the
does.
band's name is Candy Floss, and the song is called Solitude. And it has the little credits like you used to see on MTV, which made
Yep.
me happy. And the album is Glissando. But I like the fact that, I mean, those are funny because, first of all, Solitude, because she's alone. And then also Glissando, the whole, it's very keyboardy.
Yeah.
And then Graham says, I moved back home, fell in love. And he falls in love. Like you see him kind of look across the
In
bar.
a bar, yeah.
It's just like a cute lady. I have a wife and kids now who are my world, and there's home movies playing in the background, and I've got Karen to thank for that. I'd probably still be pining after her if she hadn't been brutally honest with me that night. And then Karen's cut to Karen, and she looks sad, and she says, I told him what he needed to hear, but I wasn't being honest with him. So
I
I
think
mean,
she really
Karen,
loved him.
I think she loved him. Yeah, I think in some ways she loved him more than he loved her because I think she loved him. She let him in her life. I think she's a person who had a lot of barriers up, but she was
I,
never going to be able to give him the kind of love he wanted, the kind of life he wanted.
she loved him enough to let him go.
Yeah, I think ultimately he would have stayed with her and been unhappy. Like he would have.
I think he could have been happy. I think he could have, but I think Karen would I would suspect, because I know I would. I think that she would worry that he would wake up one day and be filled with regret.
Well, yes, that maybe that's a better way. I think that he would still be like, oh, I wonder what would have happened. I wish we would have had kids. I wish I would have could have been a
Yeah.
dad.
I think he would wake up one day and look back and regret the fact that he didn't have kids and he really, really wanted kids.
And I don't think being a rock star was as much of a goal for Graham. Graham was kind of he started the band because he wanted to meet girls. But like that, he wanted to find love. And Billy was the one who's like, we're going to be rock stars.
Hmm.
So then we go to Eddie, and he's formed his own band, and they show him playing at clubs, and he goes, I had my own band, but we never really made it big. And he goes, and I'm still gigging, and my life's fine now. It's fine.
It's
Let's
fine.
just,
Everything's fine. It's fine.
everything's fine. And then we cut to Warren, and Warren is like, "Oh, I'm a session drummer," and he's like, "I played on some really important records." And he goes, he married Lisa in 1982, and he has twin girls. And he goes, um, "No one asks me to sign their tits anymore. That's okay. Oh, but that's not true. Lisa sometimes she'll just do it to be nice." I thought that was so funny, and I love how it's all about the boat still. Like when they show him with the kids, the boat's named Aurora. When they show him with his twin daughters, it's in front of the boat. It's very boat. I think when they got married, it's very boat oriented. I mean, could have just been to save money, but it was just funny. And he's like, I love the picture of him in a recording session, and he's like full 80s, like he just looks like John Oates. His hair
Like the
and his
mesh
beard
shirt and the blazer
and the
over it.
blazer. He looks so cute. And then we cut to Simone, and she and Bernie opened a club, and she says it's ours, we play it, and sometimes I even get up there myself and I kill. I think she says something like that. And the club is called Haven. And then Rod, he's like, I almost quit the business. It broke my heart when they fell apart. And then he starts waxing poetic. I just felt like we didn't need to go into all that. But it's basically about how you don't want to get hurt again. It's like falling in love. But um, he's outside somewhere, and it's obviously he still has his like 70s hair, not his 90s floofy hair. Like, both are very distinct hairstyles. And then he hears some buskers, and he goes, well, and then he cuts back to him and he's like, oh, well, that's another story. So I don't know, maybe there's, another, he ended up managing some other band or bands. And then Billy says, Teddy died in 1983. They found him hunched over a soundboard after an all-night session. He died doing what he loved, just like he said. And then we cut to the Merv Griffin interview that we've seen footage of Teddy before. And he says, how Merv asks him, how do you want the world to remember you? And Teddy says, the world won't remember me, but they will remember the music, and I'm okay with that. So let's kind of talk about how we feel where everybody ended up.
I mean, I'm glad to see that Simone is living her authentic self now and is at a place in, 1997 where she felt like she could be authentic about. But again, we don't actually say it. She just says Bernie and I opened a club, and we see, scenes from her and Bernie, and they're kissing out in the open. So she, she began to get comfortable and accept herself. I think that Warren's end of, just being this session player who's played with on these great albums is very fitting and what I would expect of Warren. So yeah, I mean, I think that, they all kind of ended up, where I would expect them to be if they didn't stay, Daisy Jones and the Six.
I mean, what's interesting to me, though, is so Karen and Warren ended up still doing music, and Eddie, but Graham doesn't say anything about doing music.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah.
He came back to Pittsburgh.
Yep, he came back.
Settled down. So then we see Daisy. And Daisy says, everything I have and everything I've done, my music, my sobriety, my daughter, is all because I left that night. And, you're seeing, as she says each of those things, you're seeing something. You're seeing her say, she's like, it's like an overdub, like she's narrating, because they're showing scenes of like, Warren playing drums on a recording session for her. And then you see like a marquee at a theater. It says Daisy Jones sold out. And then you see, her daughter at the ballet class running up to hug Daisy. And Daisy has like that great 80s hair because it's like kind of permed and it's pulled up.
Yes.
Like just the front's pulled up, and she has a scrunchie on. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I got caught up in that detail, but it made
No,
me,
because I
it
was
made
trying to
me
think
smile.
like how old probably was her kid. So her kid was probably
Yeah.
born in the 80s.
Yeah. So, but each of those, like she's speaking again, and she says, everything I have and everything that I've done, my music, my sobriety, my daughter, is all because I left that night. And the interviewer, who we now know as Julia, says, have you been in love since? And Daisy says, oh, many times. I'm sure you've read about them. But with Billy, it was different. Okay, so we know Julia has been revealed as Julia. And Daisy is comfortable enough to say, I've been in love several times. You've read about them. But what I had with Billy was different. And Billy comes into this line, and this is very similar to what was in the book. Billy says, everything that made Daisy burn made me burn. And in the book, it's just Billy saying this. But in this scene, they're going kind of back and forth. And you see them singing together in the Honeycomb session and doing the Hawaii concert. And then you hear Daisy say, everything I loved about the world, he loved about the world. And that was the scene where they were driving to the beach that night. Billy says, everything I struggled with, she struggled with. Daisy drunk at the pool party is what we see. And Daisy says, we were two halves in that way you almost never find with anyone. And we see Daisy singing More Fun to Miss as Billy watches, and we see the Chicago performance. Billy comes back and says, but at the same time, we were a mess. Two natural disasters who needed to heal. And that cuts to that scene of him running and finding her in the shower passed out. And then the one after the press conference where they're arguing in the hallway. And then the one in the back of Billy's bus and them singing together. And then Daisy says, I don't think we could have done that. I mean, I know we wouldn't have done that, at least not then. And while she's saying this, we see them singing in the concert, and then Billy's in the foreground with Camilla in the background, and Simone and Daisy before they go to rehab. So the 1997 versions are recognizing what they were.
Yeah.
That they were very, very similar. That they were cut from the same cloth. That they were the two very similar tortured souls. But in the end, they knew that they were terrible for each other at that point in their lives.
Yeah.
They knew that they were terrible for each other. And they could not have done what they both went on to do had they gotten together.
Well, and I just love what Daisy says when she says, everything to when I left that night. And I love the language because she's using like a lot of sobriety kind of language. Like she is a person who has obviously done the work. Like, she, when you listen to people who are sober, these are the kinds of things that they say. And I just appreciate it so much because we want her to be okay. So they've said all these things, and then Billy goes, Jules, you know all this, and she goes, no, she wants, Julia wants him to say it. And so Billy's like, I got out of rehab, I went to therapy, I did the program, and I won Camila back. And there's these nice home movies of them being married and happy. And he goes, plus I got to right some wrongs. And, he got to make it up to Julia for missing things. So he, things that he missed. And then he says, and then your mother got sick.
And then we cut to Karen. And Karen said, she was the reason that I joined the band. And you can think about what that looked like. That phone conversation of them calling Karen and asking her to join and wanting to speak to Camilla and asking if they were worth it. And Camilla says, I wouldn't be here if they weren't. And then Eddie cuts to Eddie, and Eddie's, again, now that we know that it's Julia, he's like, I would have been there. I would have been there. I just didn't know. And what he meant was he didn't know if it would be okay with Billy for him to be there. And then Daisy, she saw a future for me that I couldn't see myself. And she was right. Because again, we know Camila has said it throughout this relationship that she was Daisy Jones's biggest fan. And then they cut to Graham. And Graham can't even put words together.
Let's talk there.
You just can't say it.
I know, it's so sad.
And those kinds of things,
I mean,
like where a man can't find words, kills me every time. But he couldn't find words.
If a person's voice cracks, I'll start crying. So of course,
yeah.
Because I'm a participatory crier. So the fact that Graham can't talk, and we talked about it a little bit before when we get the reveal of Julia. But it just makes everything make so much more sense when you go back and watch the very beginning when they're all sitting down to the interview, especially Graham. Because Graham just goes, however long you need. And you're like, oh, he's so sweet to that interviewer. But then I knew. So I was like, oh, he's being so sweet to Julia. But if you don't know, you're probably like, why is he so nice? And it's because it's his niece. And also, I would say, I went back and watched the beginning just before we watched this. And if you look at Graham's interview, when he goes to sit down, next to him is all family pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just so, the fact that Graham can't say anything is just so sweet. And it, to me, shows that whatever happened, at least he had a good relationship with his brother, enough that he was so much still a part of Camila's life.
And so we cut, and we've kind of broken that fourth wall, and we're no longer interviewing. We've got Billy and Julia sitting next to each other. And Billy says, she was the love of my life. And I can say that now and know that it's the truth. Give me all the platinum albums, all the money, all of this, and I would hand it all back to you. for one more minute with her. And Warren says, what's crazy is that anyone even remembers the 6. And he's sitting on his Aurora boat. The shot is, he's voicing over, and the shot is, it looks like him miking up and getting ready to sit down at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But they cut to the back of the boat, and the boat's called Aurora. And Eddie said, when the Aurora, and you see now a scene of Eddie playing in a club, sparsely populated club, but Eddie says, when Aurora was re-released on CD, we sold another 2 or 3 million copies. And then Graham says, I was in the car the other day, and I heard the song. I heard these. I don't remember which song he said he heard, but I heard the song, and it was on the classic rock station. And I just thought that was crazy. And Billy says, it's fun to think you did something. You left your mark on the world. And Julia, we cut to Daisy, and Julia says, would you ever do it again? And Daisy says, do what, honey? And Julia says, Daisy. Daisy says, I don't know how your mother would feel about that. And they cut to Julia, and Julia has a little knowing smile on her face. And she says, I do. And Daisy just kind of looks at her, kind of questioning.
I just love the honey part. When she says, do what, honey? First of all, Riley has a southern accent. Like, there's times when her accent comes out.
Yeah, her accent.
Do what, honey? The way she said that, and just the way, now that we know who Julia is, this is a person, she probably hasn't seen Julia, but she saw her when she was a baby. And, I don't know, like, I don't see your kids very much, but when I see Barrett and Sam, I still remember holding Sam in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Like they're still babies to me. They're still these little boys that I'm sorry, that's Rachel's kids, but they're these boys that I feel this, like they're always going to be little kids to me. Mm-hmm.
Well, then, think about it. Camilla would say that, Julia wanted to be Daisy. I want my hair like, she was totally enamored with Daisy as a young child.
So then we cut to, okay, let's get through it. Okay, we get through. Camilla sits down and she's like, where do you want me to sit? And then she adjusts her wig. And my husband saw this. He saw this part. He was kind of watching along with me the first time, and he was like, "Oh." And so we know that she's done this interview when she knows that she's very ill. Mm-hmm. And, she's like, "Oh, I look terrible." And Julia's like, "No, you look beautiful." And she asks, "So who are you talking to?" And she goes, "Oh, all the guys, and Uncle Graham." And she goes, "Are you going to talk to Daisy?" And she goes, "Yeah, if she will, I might." And she goes, "If you do, tell her that I'm happy for her." And so while this is happening, because I'm so emotional about this, we see this from Julia's, her camcorder screen, and it's Daisy watching Camila. And she goes, "Oh, can you imagine?" And she says, "Tell her that I'm happy for her. She's made such a beautiful life for herself, and I've always been her biggest fan." And then we cut to Daisy puts her hand, as she's watching it, she puts her hand on Julia's shoulder. Oh, I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we cut to Julia showing Billy this video of Camilla. And Camilla says, "You know what else? Tell your father to give Daisy Jones a call." And she says, "We've had such a beautiful marriage. We chose each other. But nothing in this life is as simple as we want it to be. So one day, when he's ready, tell your father to give Daisy Jones a call. And tell Daisy Jones to answer. And at the very least, the two of them owe me a song." Jesus. I don't even know what to say about the line of, we chose each other. We had a wonderful marriage. We chose each other. So then we see Billy, and then obviously some time has passed because hair looks a little bit different. But we see Billy walk up to the door of, at that point we don't know whose home it is, but Billy's walking up to a door, and he knocks on the door, and Daisy opens the door. And we cut and we see Billy's face, and Billy's smiling at her. And we cut and we see Daisy's face, and Daisy is smiling. And it's just this kind of knowing, familiar smile.
Yeah, it's a big smile.
And then we cut to the song, and this is where I will tell you I lost it. Because this song that they chose, and I'm going to lose it getting through this, was Shine a Light from the Rolling Stones. And if you have never heard this Stones song, you need to listen to it, because it was a perfect song choice for the end of this.
Yeah.
For the end of this series.
You can't, well, you just can't ask for a better ending to something. Yeah, I mean, I think it's perfect. And I mean, in the book, it's less tragic because they're in their 60s. You know, this is some bullshit that Camila dies this young.
Yeah.
You know,
but the book is still as gut wrenching.
It's still gut wrenching
because I know I made a TikTok after I finished listening to the audiobook the first time in 2022. That was the first time it had been on my TBR forever. Book was released in 2020, been on my TBR since it was released. Finally listened to the audiobook in 2022, and I recorded a TikTok after I finished listening to the audiobook, and I said I was not well, and I was not well at that point in time. And from that point, anybody who would listen to me or that I thought would read a book, I said, you have to listen to this audiobook, or you have to get this book to read. You have, and I told you about it. Anybody that would listen, I would say, if they even gave me the slightest inclination that they like to read books, I would tell them about this book.
Well, I love the conceit of, like, I think one of the best things they do in the show and in the book. The book is an oral history, which I love oral histories. I love, I've got a lot of books like that, an SNL oral history. I like anything like that. And then the fact, so to take that conceit and then do for this is basically almost like a music documentary, like almost like a behind the music. Mm-hmm. It's so good, just that story. And then the way that she reveals what happens. And then, it's just gut-wrenching to know that Camila's gone, and to know that she did, but also that she did have a happy marriage, and that she had a good life with Billy.
And she also left this permission for Billy.
Yeah.
She left this permission for Billy, and for Daisy, to go back and reconnect, because at least they could give her a song. It may be that they're at points in their lives where they're not meant to be anything to each other, friends, nothing. But at least they could get together and give Camila a song.
So what do you think happens after?
I don't know.
I think they at least become friends. I think they do write a song together. I think, I could see them, because it's 1997, so that's when that's when Fleetwood Mac had their reunion stuff and started, touring again, because they realized, all those bands realized how much money they could make, like the Eagles, and by reuniting, So, I think that, in my head, I think they would have, I think they might have been able to get the six back together.
Oh, I think they could have.
I think maybe not Eddie, but I bet Eddie's blown through a lot of money trying to make records that nobody listened to, so he'd probably do it for the money.
I think they could definitely get a reunion tour.
And Don Henley and all those guys could figure out a way to go back on tour again, definitely Daisy Jones and the Six
Yeah,
could have.
I think they could have gotten it, but I don't know. I guess at the point where I finished the book, I didn't need to know what happened next.
Okay.
Like, it ended for me
Yeah, I think in the book it ended, but seeing them together
on screen.
yeah, I don't know, it made me want more because it just was such a delightful. It was just such a great show. I thought.
Sure.
I mean, I would say the first couple of episodes are rough. I think if you can get to third episode 3, um, then that's when it gets really good.
Yeah.
So the
Well,
first two
we talked about
episodes,
how they released them.
yeah,
And I think if you had just released episode 1 and made everybody wait a week to get episode 2, you probably would have lost people.
yeah,
But because people could come in and binge 3 episodes, I think that was a really smart move on Amazon's part to get people hooked in and hopefully keep them hooked in for the entirety of the series.
that's it.
That's
Um,
it. I think what we should probably do is like take a week or so to kind of think and plan because we do have more that we want to talk about.
yeah,
I think we do have more that we want to talk about. There's tons of news. There's tons of articles that are out there. I don't know that we're going to say anything new or innovative, but hopefully if you've stuck around for this many episodes, you might be interested in our perspective on some other things because I do think that there's lots more to talk about.
okay, yeah. If anybody has, any people who've already reached out want to reach out and tell us how they felt about the ending, were they surprised, what they feel about it, what their funeral playlist song would be. I'd love to hear that, and I think we'll take off a week.
Yeah,
And
let's
then
take a
come
week.
back.
And I mean, we've got a list of things that we've accumulated over the course of the last 11 weeks, 12 weeks that we've accumulated that we want to, that we've thought about. Oh, this would make a great episode. Things to do with the music, the book itself, the audio book. So let us take a week or so to kind of gather our thoughts and make some more definitive plans because we like to have plans. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel because we may put out some short little videos in between now and then. Definitely look at our Instagram. We'll put some more stuff out on Instagram as well as we start making some plans to get back in here and continue the conversation.
Well, and I just want to say, Rachel, my friend, this
You're
has
gonna make me
been
cry.
the best experience.
I know. We've had a blast. It is
Being
two
able to
friends that
talk
have.
to you every week about this and about things we love and kind of, just, being able to talk to my friends. It's been
I know.
wonderful.
It has been. It has been. We have been very conscientious since the pandemic with our friendship. So we've just been more conscientious about it with our friendship. So I think that it has been a great thing. And we'll continue to find ways to make appointments with each other to talk. And then we'll just record it and let you guys sit in on the conversation.
All right.
We just have so many things to say. So again, don't forget we're on YouTube. Nobody's Muses. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts and on Instagram at Nobody's Muses. And don't forget email. You can find us at nobodiesmuses@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts on something we need to break down and talk about that maybe we missed, some highlight moments that you think you would like to hear a deeper dive into from us, please let us know. We would love to hear from you all. And we will talk again very, very soon.